just finished Aftermath, the first novel set after Return of the Jedi in this new continuity. The journey to Star Wars: The Force Awakens has begun, my friends. Um, this this is I've got to say this now. This has kind of been a disappointment for me. This was sold as a sort of event in Star Wars publishing. As much as any of the new, like Tarkin and New Dawn and all those new novels have been this sort of reboot of the continuity and all the rest of it, this bad boy here is apparently, you know, an event. It's like this is you must read this and things, and yet it's sort of eh, it's don't get me wrong, right? It's not bad. It's a good story. It's just sort of followed on that tradition that Del Rey seemed to have towards the end of what is now the Legends line of stories in the Star Wars universe that don't feel like they're having any real impact on the actual history of the universe. Which is weird because this is like, Journey to Star Wars The Force Awakens. It should be, fantastic and it should be on everyone's reading list and all the rest of it, and yet it's just sort of no. I was really, really surprised by the fact that it's largely told through the eyes of not nobodies, but people who we've never met before, new characters, and I was expecting for something, given the importance that they've placed on it and everything, I was expecting it to be a story featuring Luke and Leia and Han and all the rest of it, and yet it's not. And part of me is kind of hoping that that means that the old continuity isn't entirely gone. So this, this book doesn't really have any sort of timeline placement that I can tell from just reading it. It's some months after Return of the Jedi, but we don't actually know when. Um, so I'm assuming in terms of the previous books that we've had, the Bantam books at this time and things, it's sort of at the time of Truce at Bakura, which is immediately after Return of the Jedi. So you can kind of assume that that's where Luke and Han and Leia are, but it's never really said. Um, even so, as a Star Wars story, I kind of liked it. It's told in the present tense, which is kind of like the previous novel I read, the Heir to the Jedi, which is told in first person. It's trying to kind of sort of working around these sort of narrative things that have never really been seen in Star Wars publishing before. So I kind of like that. It's got an immediacy to it that still doesn't kind of drag me along. I still find myself putting it down and not coming back to it for days and things. But it's good like that. Um, and the main story is broken up by a series of these interludes that are set on different planets. The main story is on a planet called Akiva, which I've never heard of before, but could be something from Clone Wars or something, who knows. But these interludes take place. I think there's two or three of them that take place on Chandrava, which is Mon Mothma's homeworld, and where the New Republic is being set up now. And others take place just around the galaxy. One of which features Han and Chewie. Um, I think one of them Leia is mentioned in or something, but largely they just sort of ignored, which I just find strange. And from what we know of The Force Awakens so far, I don't think anyone is we've seen. So it's kind of odd that a book would have that much fanfare when it was released, only to then sort of feel that, well, actually, mm, um, it's apparently the first in a trilogy, which I wasn't expecting at first. So maybe we'll see more of a transition. But the fact that it opens with nobodies, I feel terrible for saying that, but they are new characters, so they're not an established part of Star Wars canon. As much as that shouldn't matter anymore. It just feels like a sort of. It doesn't feel like the must-read that they've sold it as, which is just strange to me. Anyway, it's a good read. It's got some pretty decent action in it. It's got a lot of what I think might be nuggets for The Force Awakens. There's towards the end we hear that there's this High Admiral or something, Fleet Admiral or something that's in charge of the Imperial fleet, who may be somehow connected with this First Order stuff. We've seen a sort of a cult of Darth Vader briefly that may be where, is it Rilo Ken, whatever, that guy with the cross guard lightsaber guy apparently is some sort of collector of relics, that may be sort of foreshadowing that. But yeah, it's a bit sort of, I'm just surprised that it's as it feels like a low-key story. It doesn't feel like it's that important. But, you know, who knows? It may prove, when the film is released in December, it may prove, oh, that was that! Oh, that was that! Of course! Now I'm seeing all these people that I read about 4 months ago. But at the minute, I'm sort of, I can take it or leave it, you know. It was enjoyable, it was a good Star Wars story, but it just feels like any old throwaway Star Wars story at the moment. So I suppose we'll see what the future holds anyway. So yeah, I thank you for watching, and let's see what happens next.